Hey guys, I'm Chris,
And I'm Mike.
and welcome back to this week's No Limits, the Thriller Podcast. How you doing this week, Mike?
Good. I feel like we maybe should be calling this the Don Bentley podcast with how much work we have to do on his series and getting ready for the next Mitch Rapp book. We're talking Don Bentley this week and definitely going into next week.
Yeah, and then anytime we get new information about Rap 23, Rap 24, what is it? Rap 23?
Rap 23, 24
Yeah.
with term limits, but yeah.
Right. I always get that mixed up. So we are taking a little shift. I guess we should also call this the No Limits Mitch Rapp Podcast because we're going to be going back and rereading some of these because of information that Don gave us. So it's all sort of coalescing together.
Yeah, we pretty much wanted to finish this series out in February. We're here recording in the last week, book number 3. Book number 4, we are cranking through because it is so damn good.
Yeah,
so I think
Forgotten War, very good.
Yeah, we'll have that one out to you guys in early March for sure, meeting our February goals. I think these were the 2 books we wanted to cover in February, with last week's The Peacock and the Sparrow. And then that sets us up for March. Like you said, a little screwball. We're going to work into the timeline The Last Man and what's the other one? Pursuit of Honor.
Pursuit of Honor.
Because that's where the Mitch Rapp book's going to fall. So I'm pumped to go back to some Mitch Rapp books, but it is unexpected in terms of our reading list. It just delays Brad Thor a little bit.
Yeah, I'm excited to go back to The Last Man. It's one of my favorites.
Right,
so
exactly.
Yeah.
Pursuit of Honor, not so much. Actually,
well, we thought the same thing about Protect and Defend, and we were pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, it was really good on reread. Yeah, check that out on the Mitch Rapp podcast. It was fun talking Protect and Defend recently. Something can be said though, because the way Pursuit of Honor is maybe possibly one of the low moments in the Rapp series. I hate to say it. I think with Hostile Intent today, we're not in my favorite part of the Matt Drake series, and it's something a little different. And like I said, thankfully, the way that book is then followed up with The Last Man as the next in the timeline order, this book's followed up with Forgotten War, which, dude, I just want to talk about that one because I'm reading both right now. I just want to jump ahead, but we can't do that. We got to slow down.
Yeah, and I guess we should give a little bit of a context. You know, we're following off of a book in Outside Man that I think we both enjoyed.
Yeah.
It was different. I don't think it was, the Outside Man was as good as the first one.
Without Sanction.
Sanction. But, you know, it's, again, like we say time and time again, it's hard to follow up with when you have such a banger first novel. You give it your best try. Now, the third one, you know, it's very intriguing. And then it wasn't brought up to me until right before we were talking that I didn't even think about. I just assumed because this whole book is based off of Ukraine that this book came out. You know, he was obviously writing it during the time of the invasion, but no, that's not the case because this book came out in May of that year, 2022. The invasion happened in February of 2022, which we know that these books get submitted well before a 3-month timeline because it was late February, right?
Right, yeah.
So now thinking about that, it kind of, you know, we're going to get into like why maybe this book doesn't jive with us that much. But I can, if this is the case, obviously it's all speculation. I have no idea. But if for some reason, once the invasion happens, he obviously had this idea, probably had the idea of Ukraine popping off, whatever, but then wanted to change it a little bit because of what actually happened.
Right.
I can see why, to me, and I think like the glaring thing with this book is how it kind of falls apart towards the end.
Yeah.
It just something I can't quite, maybe we'll talk through it. Like,
right.
Something just felt disjointed and I couldn't get into it. I struggled to get into this book. I wanted to like it in the beginning. Like, you know, this idea of, you know, like what is the first half of the book even about? It's about like this Mossad. Like we're with this.
It's Vienna. It's all the Vienna stuff.
Yeah, that part was like kind of cool.
I was really trying to hang on to it, and I'm like, maybe something will come of this. So we've got Drake on the ground. Yeah. Well, first off, let's talk the opening. He's shooting with his wife. That was really cool.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, that's cool.
Really like that. Because of the events of last book, I thought it was really important to open up with Layla and how she wants to defend herself, and kind of you see this bridge that she's coming into his world a little bit more, not just as a victim, which she was last book, but now potentially opening the door for her to have some skills, some skin in the game eventually. And I think that's a really important way to take it. And that's becoming part of Don Bentley's voice, is this call to action, In some books, it's like the main character gets a phone call and then they're on a plane going jet setting and doing some adventure. Well, Don Bentley's version of that is he's with his wife. They're having a moment. They want to develop more of their marriage. And all of a sudden, James Glass, calls him to the front lines or something.
It's very much like Mission Impossible-esque,
I was thinking Da Vinci Code,
sure.
With Langdon swimming in the pool, getting that call. And I think it's a formula. And I think it's very clear that Don Bentley's comfort zone is that formula. It's good to see if their relationship can get pushed a little further than just, Layla's his piece at home and he's got to leave her and that sucks and go do what you got to do. And then we can always expect the end of the book reunites with Layla and something about their relationship, which again happens here. We'll have to talk about in the ending, which is great, but it's becoming a little formulaic, I feel. But we're taken out of that because Drake has to get on a plane to Vienna. He's caught up in a million things here. And so the Irishman walks in. And I do like that. He
again, tying from the second book.
From the last book, right. He was a really cool character that Drake had to operate with to save Layla. That whole helicopter scene, that was just wild after the auction, right? I just thought that scene was pretty cool. And so to bring back this guy that was kind of this loose cannon, you didn't know if you could trust him, but then Drake and him, had to rely on each other, and he saved him, and Drake owed him one, and now he's calling in that favor, apparently, by being a walk-in in Vienna. But we hear that Glass set it up so that Drake would go over there and do something Glass wanted him to, which was to go after this Chinese spy at an academic conference. However, that's not even true, because the Irishman's North Korean daughter, which doesn't happen to be his North Korean daughter, is at the conference. And instead, he actually has a Russian son in the GRU who's at the conference. Yet both their phones are ringing at the same time while he's supposedly recruiting this other scientist. Yet it aligns with the Irishman's son. I cannot keep track of what's going on and why at this conference. And then you throw into it the Israeli spy lady who's wearing this fancy dress that the DIA budget.
Yeah, she was kind of cool.
She was kind of cool, but what's she do in this whole mix? The whole thing was just a blur to me. I think I missed something. I didn't get it. That conference, you're the scientist. You've done these academic conferences. Was it cool to kind of see a spy's game being played at a paper or poster proposal?
No, because he was making fun of nerds. He was calling us all nerds.
He was. He took some jabs there.
He took a lot of jabs at the scientific community. Maybe I had to bring that up with Don. I felt a little bit offended.
That was fun.
No, you hit the nail on the head. All right. It makes sense, right, that he's got to go over there to do this. But at the same time, Benny pops back up.
That's right.
Drake saved as well. So we have not only one with the Irishman, but two people who were involved with the helicopter extraction with his wife, calling in favors. But what I really just cannot understand is this weird piece of, wait, I wanted you to go to Vienna anyways because I needed you to get this Chinese spy who's supposed to be like in the next book, which I guess I'll just bring it up. He casually references that he went to Austria to track down like the Chinese Bill Gates. He calls him the Chinese Bill Gates.
Bill Gates, exactly. Yeah, I called that.
I don't get that at all.
I don't get that here. No, not at all. It seems like some low scientist at some mid-tier university who has some secret spy connections.
I think the way I read it was that this is some weird, young, brilliant, like scientist who happened to stumble upon some groundbreaking work.
Yeah, some research that they want. Yeah, that's right.
Not someone who is
not like a Bill Gates type.
Not someone who's about to found. Maybe I'm just thinking Bill Gates now, but like I guess,
maybe like living out of his garage, Bill Gates kind of thing.
Yeah, was he trying to like convey that? I don't know.
Anyways. It was really weird. It seemed a mischaracterization to say that.
But it's just weird how, like, all right, Glass wanted him to go to Austria to pick up this guy, but that just happened to be the same city that the Irishman did a walk-in in.
Yeah. Oh, and then another coincidence.
And then the daughter. Find my daughter. Find my daughter who's at this conference, who just happens to be at the same conference that you were already going to.
But that was a distraction because it was really the son, and the son had cloned the phone so both their phones would ring at the same time. I wanted that to be cool, right? When he tries dialing the number and he hears the phone ringing that he's dialing, I want to be like, oh my God, they're right behind you. You know, like a horror movie, like turn around. Mm-hmm. But I didn't have that at all because I'm like, what and who is he calling? And she's North Korean, but she's really a front because he's going to go secretly meet with the son who's actually a Russian. Dude, I am lost. And there's another wrinkle here.
That's not his daughter, right?
I don't think that's the daughter, no.
No, but he just told him
that was a front to get to the son.
Because the son will be watching that
because the son was watching that lady and he cloned her phone number and blah, blah, blah.
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't know how we go down that rabbit trail, but that is...
It's not, but ultimately it's not even important.
Not really, no. The only thing is that the Irishman had information because his son was in the GRU who had the information on the nuclear weapon.
On the nuke.
And the cell.
That's all to get to the nuke.
Right. And there was some scheming being done behind closed doors where Russians were setting up the false flag operation, which gets us into the Ukrainian side of it all. This is the first time, because last book, one of our critiques, and at the time I felt it, but I don't know if this was the answer. One of the critiques was the first person staying with Matt Drake the whole time, while it landed in Without Sanction, because it almost felt like a video game and he was the main character. Sure. We're seeing his eyes, everything through his eyes. That worked for that kind of linear plotting of the Syria story. In book 2, we liked the villain, Mr. Suave.
Right. Yeah.
Yet we couldn't spend time with him. We couldn't see him up to his devices.
Without Matt
Drake. So there were like weird cutscenes where Mr. Suave had to pop in and pop out of Matt's world. And we're like, why is he here? And the idea was we couldn't know anything about him except for when Drake ran into him. Well, here we've got 4 competing storylines, I think. And we're leaving the first person of Matt Drake to go into the Ukrainian shoes.
This is the first time, right?
The first time.
I just thought about that.
Yeah. We're going into the Ukrainian shoes, seeing them plotting, who actually are set up by the Russians to bring in the nuke. We also see, and it's really a weak link, Peter Redmond, the chief of staff. He somehow, I remember the Russians were using him, and so, or he called in a favor with a Russian asset, and so he knew they were going to get him back. But what did you think of going to the White House all of a sudden with this Peter character, who, again, I didn't know his role in it all, and I frankly didn't care. The American government stuff was a big miss for me.
So I think, again, it's just to tie in this plot from, is that from the first book? I guess it's both books, right? Because ultimately, like, the second book is just a continuation of, like, the first book. But the CIA director who was bad, it was Charles Sinclair.
That's right, Charles Sinclair. Yep.
Is Peter's like best friend.
Exactly. What did Peter have to do in this book? Let's be real.
I thought it was cool. Like, all right, I thought he was going to sell out. You know, he's going to become a Russian mole, essentially.
That's what I thought.
But in the very end, he just, in the middle of the Situation Room, I'm supposed to take it because also Don's doing this weird thing where like he cuts something and then like you immediately flash forward to like some consequence from that scene, but we don't actually see the full scene.
We don't see it happen. Exactly. Weird time jumps.
He says, I have something to say, or like, I think I can help with that. And then it immediately goes to the Russian getting captured by the FBI, police, whatever.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to take it that like, all right,
he intervened.
He just confessed that I have this Russian contact to do a backdoor
and that's how they got her.
And that's how they got her.
Yeah. It makes sense. But again, those jumps were very strange. I think Don trying to do the competing storylines, we had some weird jumps where they said something was going to happen and we all of a sudden jump ahead to it's already been done and dusted. Mm-hmm. We don't see it play out, which might have been that missing link I'm looking for. But
Now
I
I'm
thought
trying
that
to
was a
think.
swing and a miss. I thought it got away from the DNA of the first two Matt Drake novels, which had limitations,
Yes,
but those
but
limitations were exposed here.
it was his. That's what he was trying to do.
I know, but it didn't hit.
No. I'm saying like the first two books, he was going to be first person only.
Right.
Right? It was completely first person.
No, it was. And I think that worked in the sense it built up a unique voice.
Sure.
And
I'm
moving
trying
away
to
from
think.
it.
Now reading Forgotten War, we haven't had any. I'm about halfway through the book. Have we had any cutscenes?
I don't think so. And even if we did, it wasn't as dramatic as Hostile Intent was, with like 3 or 4 cutaways that we're jumping between.
We in this book, Hostile Intent, we definitely go to Peter, we go to the Ukrainians, we go to that Russian, the Pietrov, the GRU, the other GR. I don't know if he's GRU or SVR. Like I was confused about who the hell he was.
But the guy pulling strings in Russia.
Yeah, he just happened to be at the same. At the end, he was at the same airbase. He was there to like perpetrate the false flag event with the nuke and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That Matt happened to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now that I'm thinking about it, he's completely in this new book. He's completely gone back to the original.
I think we're back to first person with Matt.
And maybe that's why we're liking it.
I think so. Yeah, because there's a bar scene, there's with her family, that's him, and then he's in the car, and then the plane. Yeah, it's all him so far in the first half of this book. And it just feels, again, like
we'll get into we promise we'll get into Forgotten War. We'll try to keep these references to a minimum. But, I think it's good context to think about this, because we're just trying to understand why this book didn't hit for us.
Why it felt out of place from what we've bought into in the series.
Yeah, there's this other question I kind of wanted to hash out with you. Who is Matt Drake?
Yeah.
What is he supposed to be? Because, in the first one, he's kind of, remind me, the first one is where the second one is where he's like immediately shut up when he's driving. The first one is all about,
he goes into Syria.
Right. Right. And he's having these problems with his brain.
The PTSD. Yeah, PTSD. Exactly. There was that chemical agent, which they tested on him and whatnot. Yeah.
He's supposed to be this DI agent.
Yeah.
Who so far has gotten into a whole host of things. The first book, he's being set up as this guy who can go in there and operate, thought was cool.
Now he's a spy. In this book and the next, he's a big time spy. The
second one is all about like his wife, right? Because his wife gets taken.
Yep.
So it's like, revenge for that. This one, he's like trying to be a spy.
Recruiting assets, yeah.
Recruiting assets, which is cool. But then like halfway through the book, when we switch to the Ukraine storyline, it's like, all right, we're going to send you two in because we already had a connection to send 2 DIA agents to buy this nuke. So instead we're going to supplant you, or no, not even buy a nuke. It was to buy some black box that could like crack into a missile system.
Yeah.
But we're going to happen to see if this guy also has the nuke.
Right. Yeah, and if you can track it down.
And then this just happens to be the same like airport where the Russians are going to stage their paratrooping.
And the parachutes are coming in. That was wild. So I wanted to like all that.
Maybe it was just too much. It was just too much.
Something tells me the second half of this book should have and could have been a massive set action piece that mimics what's going on in Ukraine, but puts us on the ground there and essentially is deadfall. And the problem is, because of all these other storylines and loose ends that I have not bought into, why am I going to all of a sudden buy into Drake on the ground in Ukraine, kicking ass, taking names, and stealing nukes? And these paratroopers.
Deadfall did a way better version of this.
Correct. I had no reason to buy into that switch compared to you all of a sudden put Scott Harvath on a train with the troll and they're taking that train to the front lines, and there's that lady in the orphanage of Deadfall, and Harvath is in this village meeting up with the locals who have their, like ham radios that they're all trying to communicate with. Dude, I was bought into that operation. Something tells me this should have bought me in because, man, he's driving this Jeep once they recover the nuke and they're trying to get out. There's so much action happening, but for some reason, I didn't care. Like, I don't know what got me to that point. I think it's something about the setup. It wasn't teed up for me.
Maybe
so it should have been awesome.
The first half of this book with the Chinese scientist and
the academic conference. There was no coming back. There was no coming back for me after that. I'm sorry.
And the Irishman was just all a ploy to get us to, I got to stop World War III. I got to stop my country from World War III. And it's just I feel like there could have been a better lead up, or either have the book be about this Skynet, be about this technology that this Chinese person has and that you need to stop. You need to stop the person who gets it, whatever.
I wonder how it would have been picking up this book and just reading the Ukraine scene, pure chaos. You feel you're in a Vietnam movie with everything just flashing and going off and going bananas at you.
What's crazy is the perspective from the militia. Did you buy into them at all?
No.
That storyline with these native Ukrainians who are trying to, save that he has to be the one to take the nuke and he's going to detonate it.
I was so gone by then. I'm sorry. I was so gone by then. That's what I'm saying. I think it could have been awesome. I think probably the substance is there. I was so far out of my element, not interested in it, which it's partially me, the reader's fault, but the book didn't get me there after the early stuff. I was going dress shopping with a Mossad lady. I was going to this conference where some phones ring in. I was lost by that point. So yeah, no, didn't hit for me.
Yeah. This is the first time where I just wanted to finish the book because I had to finish it. Yeah,
Same.
It's sad. It's sad.
And guys, the reason earlier we were talking Forgotten War is because Chris and I were kind of texting after this book wrapped up. Man, what does this mean? We didn't get into it. Is this, going to be one of our least favorite books we've reviewed on the pod? And I'm like,
I was like,
no.
Is it just me? Is it just you?
Yeah. I was like, no, I don't think this is it. I'm starting the next one. And I just want to see where we're going from here. And I started the next book, and literally within the first page, first chapter, first paragraph, I'm hooked. And then I kept going, and I couldn't put it down. And then I ripped through half of Forgotten War, the fourth book. So, folks, this is a tough one. The scorecard may indeed be a tough one, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. Don comes back in book 4 with something special. So I think we just gotta power through this, and next week we'll have a great time talking about book number 4.
Yeah,
but what'd you like? Let's try to find that positive, because there's a few things.
Let's be positive.
Yeah, there's a few things.
I think overall, the spy stuff, we're really starting to see Mandrake as a spy, and Don keeps telling us how good of a asset handler he is. I think some of that is starting to come through, and I like the playful interaction with him and the Mossad lady. What was her name?
Elia.
Yeah. And then, some of the humor there was kind of funny. I think I like how he's kind of like a Mitch Rapp kind of guy, where he's not a superhero, buff, beefy, but he still can take ass. Kick ass and take names.
He's taking ass, huh? Whose ass is he taking? Layla's? There's something. It was refreshing to know, and here's something I really, really liked. It's refreshing to know how committed he is to his wife.
Very much so.
Any time, whether it's the Austrian intelligence lady, whether it's the Mossad agent who's stunning on an op with him, you really just feel comfortable that he's faithful, and there's no sort of intimacy or romantic storylines that are going to have to be forced. You almost just trust that he's pure professional through and through. So I think it helps me get over the Brad Thor syndrome that we were talking about on the Brad Thor podcast. Every book, every female you meet is going to be described as an attractive woman in her early 30s, and we're going to get some physical description of her, and Scott's going to have a run-in. Well, here it's like, no, that's not Drake's gig. He's a family man.
There is that one scene where like she's getting changed and like he says her maybe he was just trying to be funny, like, but her butt was like in the rearview mirror in the back, like, but
yeah, and I think that's another thing is humor. So I like that you can trust Drake is just a faithful, family-oriented character. You every book starts and ends with him and his wife,
definitely
and I think that's fun.
He's definitely a smartass.
And he's a smartass, right? So you can see there's so much you can identify with him. Where the tough man, dark brooding Mitch Rapp, maybe you can't. Mm-hmm. Where Drake, you can identify with the part of him being a romantic for his wife, and you can identify the part with him making dad jokes and dirty dad jokes sometimes, and goofing off with Frodo and Glass. So there's my biggest winner of this book. I'm going to jump ahead. Anytime you get Frodo, Drake, and Glass together, whether even it's on like a Zoom call as they're doing some of these Skype calls, or whether they're actually in person, the dynamics between them are fantastic. I just think everything about Drake and Frodo's friendship and their authority relationship with Glass as their guy, but they could still, rib on him a little bit. They still go back and forth. I think those conversations are delightful.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's definitely one of
the winner for me.
Yeah.
Frodo gets taken. I forgot about that.
He does. Yeah, that was another like crazy thing that happens. And then he has to like, all right, again, we're talking things that we liked. That scene is probably one of my favorite scenes, like the action where, you see Matt Drake's tactical mind in action.
Yeah.
And he has to think 10 steps ahead. And he's like, all right, he does the calculation. All right, if I turn right, maybe I can go save him if he's still at the safe house. But if he's not there, then he's gone. I'm never going to get him. So if I turn left and try to stage, a rendition or what is that called? Where a takedown of this roaming vehicle, maybe we can get him back. And he figures it all out and executes it to some extent and gets Frodo back. That was cool. That was really cool.
Yeah, it was. And if you honestly that was the plot of the book. No Ukraine, no nukes, no paratroopers.
You just got to get Frodo back.
It would have been cooler. Right. I think that would have been great. So I think it was just one too many things that I should have been bought into that Frodo storyline. And if anything, during the big battle, I don't care about defusing the nuke all that much, to be honest. But I do care about getting Frodo back home safe. Yeah. So I just think those two things
the nuke is not even he can't even move it, right? Because it's so heavy and the car breaks down. So he has to freaking explode, like
light it on fire.
Light it on fire, to get rid of the explosive material.
Similar to what Jack Carr did. Was that Only the Dead on the boat? Yeah.
With the propane tank. Yeah,
you can't defuse the bomb, so you might as well prevent the ignition system from being able to operate.
Yeah. I feel like this also happened. Someone did that in a movie.
It's been in movies, for sure.
James Bond thing or something.
Yeah, for sure.
Other things that I like.
We mentioned the
I'm
wife.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Oh, that's about it. No, what did you think about the ending, the surprise, the reveal?
Oh, the baby. Yeah,
I love it.
It's cute, and it continues on in the next book, and it's even more cute. So
we were building onto it. We were getting there. Yeah,
for sure. I think he's definitely a family man.
Yep.
And Don's not afraid to put that into the series. Whereas like some of our other writers are a little more reluctant, or like it's sort of this dichotomy. But I guess it's a dichotomy here because he it's going to be with any of these operators. If you want to have a life, but you're also in this other. You have this completely other life that's unsafe. How do you mesh the two?
Yeah.
So, obviously he's bringing up all the things that are real concerns for these kind of people. So.
Yeah. And book one, I remember we were on the fence about her because there was that weird stuff where he saw her face in random places, and it was part of his PTSD.
Like PTSD.
Yeah. And then again, we were like, but she wasn't really brought into the story. And then in book two, dang, she's brought into the story.
Yeah.
And so we liked it. Here, it's like, oh, he's ripped away from her again. the same thing we already saw, this kind of trope. He has to leave her to go on a mission. But then in the end, we get some bombshell, which clearly is going to follow into the next book of her playing a very important role.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time, after 3 books, part of me was getting to, we know she's half Pakistani, half Afghani. Where's that leading to? You know, like there must be some reason, her background and how they met and how she's indigenous to the region where he has felt so comfortable operating for his career. There must be something there, and that string needs to get tugged on. And it hadn't, right? For 3 books, it hasn't been brought up that she's ethnically from this region that he's in. And now that's going to play a very important role in the 4th book. So little hint, guys, the baby news at the end of this, plus Layla's background, is very important moving forward. And I think we're hitting the right time in the series for that.
Mm-hmm. Should we also talk about Don's hate of all things Navy?
He don't like the SEALs very much.
It's very funny after reading, we've obviously read Brad Thor, we read Jack Carr, one written by a SEAL, one about a SEAL. Well, 2, both are about a SEAL.
Drake's an army man, dude.
Yeah.
He's a Ranger
it's just,
man.
It's funny how he's ranking all the special forces people that he would want to like operate with. And then like they get down to, all I got for you is some SEALs. And he's like, you got anything else? Like essentially like, I'm like, come on, it can't be that bad.
It's a little on the nose, but
the only thing, it's funny. It's funny. Yeah, it's funny.
I'm
okay.
Only
thing they can do is drink beer and play Call of Duty.
Yeah, exactly. It also breaks the trend. I think there's such a trend in media that just the SEALs have to be the Ubermensch and the answer to everything and the protagonist. And I like that it kind of breaks that ice while being a little playful.
Yeah, this is the first book that I've read where we get like a Delta Force operator.
Mm-hmm.
That's Frodo. There's not many that are. Or maybe I'm wrong. Do you know any out there where like the main protagonist is a Delta Force operator?
No, I'm not aware.
Or
and that's what you asked before. Who is Matt Drake? And I actually have to say, I really like the fact that it's so different.
He's an Army Ranger.
It's not a CIA guy. You go to DIA. Makes it a little bit different because there's an interplay with the military there. They're Rangers instead of SEALs, Frodo and his background and the people that Drake feels comfortable operating around and trusting.
Well, Frodo was part of the unit.
Yeah.
But Drake was not Drake was just a Ranger.
He was just a Ranger, yeah. The unit, I'm assuming, is referring to Delta.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is just like the special forces, right, of the Rangers.
Correct. Yeah.
Are they not in? So. Did they not overlap? I don't know anything about this. But anyway,
I was trying to read it up today because I was trying to see like which one's better. Trying to settle that argument.
Well, I think Delta is the special forces of
the Army.
The Army.
Yeah.
So I think
the Rangers are also technically special forces. Or like they're like anyways. They all have like different mission sets.
And then there's Green Berets.
Yeah, there's Green Berets, which. Well, this is, again, information we're gleaning from the next book, but we learned that Green Berets are actually ones that are inserted with this extra element of like where they often learn languages, they work side by side closely with people, with like natives,
the natives,
and stuff like that. Yeah. It's very interesting.
Yeah,
everybody has their own mission subsets.
Yeah, they all have different skill sets, exactly. So I kind of like that, and I like that Drake's not the womanizer, and then you get the Texas stuff. I feel like we're very much building a who is Matt Drake identity that's not cookie cutter, that's not bland.
Yeah, no, it's very nice. It's very refreshing to like get this different kind of person.
Exactly. I think he has so many edges. And then the thing with a Glass also that I love is he's this badass old man character, but you put him in DIA. I think that's very different than having that kind of person outside of the confines of the government, working, doing the secret stuff. He is still having to work within certain constraints, yet he's able to cut through a lot of that and, let Drake be Drake when he needs to be. So sure. I think putting Glass in that position is also a little different than some of our other characters.
Yeah, it's like you get
it's not quite private.
These guys are way more military.
Exactly. There's a military backdrop
than the CIA. Like
exactly.
Glass reminds me of Stan Hurley, but is like but he's different, reminds me of Stan Hurley and like sort of the aura and like the gruffness, but Whereas Stan was like a spy, and Glass was a door kicker. You know.
It's almost like the way Gary Lawler in Scott Harvath is confined to the FBI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much.
It's
so.
like if you put Stan Hurley inside of an organization and you have a loose cannon like Stan Hurley, but still having to work
tied down by
in an official capacity.
Yeah,
like that's tough, and that's where Glass is. So he has to be hard on Drake and Frodo, right? He has to call them out for being cowboys, but then he also has to give them the rope a little bit and let them go off and be cowboys. Right. But he then also has to deal with budgeting, which is the whole thing about the dress when they go shopping. So it's all these realistic constraints of bureaucracy that Glass has to deal with. Like, what would you do if Stan Hurley was actually a commissioned officer in charge of something for the military? It would that's not going to last very long.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I just thought it was funny how he doesn't like the SEALs, and like I think two, it sort of goes to with his persona and like what he wants to write about. And I think it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think it's nice, like you said, refreshing, because we're coming at a genre that we love, but from a completely different angle, and it's a nice like change of pace from what we're used to.
Yep. And then having Frodo also, dealing with his injuries, you're seeing the real fallout of what operators and their families deal with, and bringing in Catherine. I really love his girlfriend. Working at NSA and how they can use her and her role. So that's a lot of fun too. Yep. They're the positives. We found them.
Glass himself is the only reason he's not still operating is because he lost an eye, right?
Yeah. He lost the eye. We got Frodo injured, and we have already been through Drake and his PTSD and mental health issues. So I think that brings a lot of humanity to the book.
I liked that Don's toned down like the whole guitar thing, like that he has to, play a song with his hands. And
it crops up every once in a while, though.
Yeah, I like it much better in this book, like where like his hand, he mentions like his hand started twitching, and you because you read the other books, you kind of know like what might come on, but it doesn't.
Exactly.
Or and maybe it's just showing that he's progressing, like he's able to maybe recovering more.
He's got his strategies, yeah, and plus. The first book that was tied up with the storyline, so it had to go very heavy into that because of the chemical agent and whatever that he was tortured with. So it had to go very heavy in that. But now we just get light glimpses of that, which add to his background without dominating, the storyline. So yeah, I think that was handled really well here as a follow-up to the first book. Is it time?
I think it's time. Want to do the scorecard?
Let's do it.
All right, action. There's a lot of action.
There's a lot.
Is a good action.
Is it quality?
Is it quality? Quantity over quality.
I understand some of this is on me as the reader because I really did check out once the action ramped up, like the Ukraine stuff when it was ramping up.
The second half of this book is pretty much just nonstop action.
It's nonstop, but that's right when I was kind of going downhill. So it's on me. But I'm going to go with a 5 out of 10.
Ooh. I see where you're coming at. But I'm going to have to go a little bit higher than that. I'm going to go like a 6.5. I think, I had to do some mental gymnastics, like thinking about some certain things. But ultimately, if you just strip everything away, once he gets into that, he's in a Range Rover, because he talks about how well it performs. Once he gets into that Range Rover, and they're getting kitted up and they go on, and then like all of a sudden you have these two helicopters coming in with the Ukrainian loyalists. Then you have the Russians who are there like to do the false flag event coming in, and then you have the Russians who are being paramilitary dropped, and you had like that's being cut in and all that stuff. Then you have the SEALs, and then they're able to get away, and then I don't know. Again, it's a look. I could see where you're coming.
Yeah.
Maybe a 6.
I think you're right. I think the quality of those scenes and writing are really good. So maybe I shouldn't double ding it, because what I'm really complaining about is the plot and the body.
Yeah, exactly.
So the quality of the action, you're right, probably deserves higher. I'll go 6. And some of the early action, like when he took down that team of Russians who took the Irishman. That was cool. And then the Irishman bleeds out. Yeah, that was cool. And then there was like he fights the cops.
Oh yeah. He fights the cops. The
There was
car
a street
chase.
chase. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
When the
yeah.
Irishman picks him up. Yeah, I'll go 6, and I could see your 6.5 for sure. For sure. I have no problem with that.
There's also the scene where like he obviously he gets out of that of the conference, and then there's the fake fight. That was the other confusing thing. Like they're supposed to meet up this. Anyways, we're not talking. We're done talking about confusing things. But anyways, or maybe we can talk about it now with the plot. Like what are we gonna give this plot?
We already hashed out the academic conference business.
Yeah, after the academic conference, remember he tells him to meet him at this cafe, and if he's black, put the coffee in one hand.
Oh,
If he's
yeah.
red, put the coffee in the other
Yeah.
hand.
Yeah.
He's red, but Drake's like, I'm still gonna,
He
I still gotta
decides to
meet up
put
with
it in the
him.
black hand, yeah, to meet with him, even though he knows it will expose it.
And then they
What
get
was
in a
that about?
fight.
Yeah, but he had to fake it to make. Oh, he didn't want to blow the cover of the GRU guy, the Irishman's son, because he knew
Yeah,
he was being watched. So he whispered
but
something to him.
but his son, the son was also on a job staking another scientist.
All I remember is he didn't want to blow the GRU guy's cover, so it made it look like they were fighting. But he fought to the point where the GRU guy would know he's going easy on him for a purpose.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
they kind of had a mind meld there. I don't get it.
That all I'm saying all that just to give this plot is like a 4.
I was gonna say I'll go down to a 4. Yeah, and unfortunately, my buy-in's gonna be a
The
2.
buy-in's a low. Yeah, it's like a 2 and like.
Yeah. So the first book, Without Sanction, we were in the mid-40s. I want to say. The second book, The Outside Man, we were in like upper 30s. I think it's gonna make sense that this book slips to the low 30s. I just
Sure.
think that's
Yeah.
how it's gonna be, but we'll get there. The
Bad
bad
guys.
guys.
Who are
The
the
Russians, the Ukrainians.
I guess it's supposed to be that Petrov guy.
Right, exactly. But I didn't know him that well or care. It's strange because in the last book we wanted more Mr. Suave. Well,
Mhm.
here we get more time with the villain, and I don't like it.
And I don't like it. Yeah.
Ugh. Like I wanted that time with Suave last book, and we didn't get it. And then now we get it. It's like I think I got to go with 2. I can't point to anything I really liked about the villains.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of like who
Who
the
was a villain?
is. The Russian president that we don't ever see.
Right. Do you think all this that we're questioning was part of the editing process trying to go back and be like, oh shit, this actually happened in Ukraine, so let me piece this in? Or, oh, I maybe didn't even have this false flag operation, but we should do that because it's kind of going on right now. How much do you think was kind of edited in and that's what's throwing us off?
Is that true that they had
Well, not a nuke.
no, I'm not talking about the nuke. I'm talking about there's 2 other scenes where we cut to where again we're not with Matt. We cut to one where there's a protest and there's a bunch of
Oh, they shoot him.
bunch of Spetsnaz soldiers dressed up as
Yeah.
Ukrainian soldiers that shoot the protesters.
I definitely think so, right? Like it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah,
And if not a
listen, it could
protest that
happen.
they fired on, then something else,
Something else. Yeah.
like a Russian speaking enclave in eastern Ukraine in that region. And then all of a sudden it gets looted and burnt and people are massacred and there's a pile of bodies burning, whatever. And then Russia has fake videos of people wearing what looks like Ukrainian regalia doing it and committing it, but it's really them. So whether or not it's like straight up firing at the protesters like they did in the scene or something equally nefarious, yeah, right. That's happening,
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about like who the bad guys are.
I have
And
no
the
idea.
only
I'm giving them a 2.
one the only one who I can think of is this Petrov guy who is supposed to be essentially leading the Russian assault on Ukraine. That's what we're supposed to believe. We didn't spend that much time with him. And the time we did, it was weird. I don't know. So yeah, it's like I'm gonna go even lower. I'm gonna go like a 1.
The bad guys could even be the ones who take the Irishman in the beginning.
Yeah, those are
Oh,
the Vimples.
the Vimples. Yeah, yeah,
Is this like a new unit? Because this is like the second book that we've gotten talking about
yeah.
Vimples.
We got Sleeping Bear, brought them up. Well, they're the ones, I don't know how new they are per se, but they're the ones charged with going after defectors, dissidents and defectors internationally. So they're scary people. Yeah, maybe my 2 is generous thinking about I thought my 2 was going to be harsh, but man, you dip into that 1.5 territory. That's not been done before. Have we given a 1 to anything?
I don't know, dude. We're normally pretty.
We look for the positive.
I'm just. Oh, talk me up. Talk me on 1.5 up.
I can't. I'm thinking about joining you.
Oh God! All right, good guys. Let's move on to the good guys.
Good guys. Let's keep it moving here.
Matt Drake.
Yeah.
Frodo.
Love him. Always have. Glass.
This
girlfriend now.
What did you think of the massage chick?
Okay. I mean,
okay.
If the other guys we just said are your 4.5, your 4.5s, she's like the 3.5. Maybe no, she's like 2.5. Maybe
like a
3.
3.
She's a 3. The Austrian chick, the intelligence lady, kind of hates Drake, wants to kick him out of country. I get it, makes sense.
But
she came on strong.
Who gave him a gun.
I thought she was going to go after the Russians.
She was going to be super cool.
Yeah.
I thought she was going to be super cool. I was really liking her. I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah. She's talking down her partner who wants to kick his ass.
Yeah. She gives him the gun, says there's a 30-minute window where there's going to be no police.
Yeah.
Go do what you want to do. And then she gets pissed off that he kills like 5 of them.
She told him to.
Yeah, anyways.
She's a bitch. I was going to use a different word that's popular in the UK, but not for our US audience. I'm sure you know what that is.
Yeah. See you next Tuesday, right? The Navy SEALs at the end. I like them.
Yeah, good dudes. 3.
Yeah, I'm scrounging for 3.
Okay. Or 3.5. Is that harsh?
3.5, because Frodo and Drake are.
Yeah, 3.5. Frodo, Drake, Glass. Yeah. Setting. We basically Austria? Vienna. We basically have Vienna and we have Ukraine, right? Am I missing something?
I thought he did a decent job of like explaining like we're in like the villages of Ukraine, like in this pub and like meetings. We get descriptions of like the beautifulness of the country. I remember one time Matt Drake says
the roads when you're on that Range Rover.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like we get a little bit of Austria, like because they talk about the city of music. He does a good job of like describing those things, and especially like describing this like where the conference is. Where
descriptions are not bad. They're not bad.
I'll go 4.
Yeah, he's done well painting a picture and getting you there, like on the ground in Syria. I remember some shed where Drake's trying to start up a motorbike or a ATV or something. And in the last book, I remember the auction house, this kind of grand, kind of opera house feel where they're auctioning people off.
It's not Brad Thor.
No.
But it's good.
And it's certainly good enough for a Mitch Rapp book, I would say, in terms of setting.
Yeah, because typically we're not... There's like a few like books that stand out in terms of like truly wanting to describe, I think of the Apostle. Oh no, that's a Brad Thor. I think of The Last Man, actually.
Afghanistan.
Being in Afghanistan.
Yeah. Anything in DC, starting with term limits and transfer power. That's Vince Flynn's bread and butter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a 4 is a little high, but considering where we've been everywhere else, I'm okay shouting out setting as a positive here. Didn't occur to me earlier, but I definitely think it is.
All right.
The cover. I've liked these in the past, this lineup.
So we get, this is all Austria, right?
Right. Yeah. Which you're kind of pigeonholed into. It has to be Austria,
I don't know. Is that a spire in Austria?
Dude, I'm not going to be able to identify individual buildings, but
You're a
It's gotta
geography
be.
teacher, bro.
Come on now. You know how many cities there are in the world? It's gotta be, and even if it isn't, everything about those buildings, that architecture. Oh, the flag. Yeah, there we go. We got the Austrian flag floating in that bottom right corner. So I think enough about the buildings definitely shows me they got the setting right.
Oh yeah, Austrian flag. Yeah, that's Austria. Okay.
Yep.
I didn't love the Without Sanction, but the Outside Man wasn't bad. And this one I kind of like. You kind of like, all right. Reminds me of like a Liam Neeson type. This could be a movie poster. Definitely movie
Yeah.
poster esque.
Yeah, I see that. It's
We spend
almost
half the book in Austria, so
No, you're right. You're right. I'm not banging it on the setting or the background. The figure, though, is what's bothering me because I liked the voice that was the visual voice that came through with Without Sanction, with that character facing you, squaring up to the camera. And then I like the same in The Outside Man, but he's backwards.
Right.
I kind of like that we were there. This kind of in the middle of the action, gripping the weapon, running.
Constantly on the move, like Drake is in this novel.
It's true. Fair. It is. I think visually it doesn't work as good as the last two of the guy facing you and then the guy backwards, kind of in a very different pose. But it continues the theme. Of the three, It's probably my least favorite. Also, the colors, the yellow with this like orange tint over the city.
I definitely like the red and the like bluish gray of the last two better.
Right. The red and black I felt had more of a punch. The bluish gray wasn't getting me either, but the yellow orange isn't getting me all that much. I just think the red and black was really super iconic for the series. So, okay, but the horizontal text. I love the angled text. I think that's perfect. So I'm glad that's followed through.
I'm going to go 3.5.
It's in the middle. Yeah, I'm going to go 3. 3.5 could work too. Yeah, I'll go 3.5. It's okay.
All right, you already said your winner, right?
I did.
James Glass.
Yeah, you have anything else? It's Glass and Frodo and them talking, shooting the shit.
The winner of this book to me,
clothes shopping.
It's got to be clothes shopping. It's got to be. No, I know. I'm gonna pick a single scene. That's gonna be my winner of this book. And you mentioned it. It's the opening.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I really like the opening with the at the shooting range.
Yeah.
Seeing him and his wife in action, and then, again playing up that comedy, the humor, the hard ass, the smart assness of Drake, where these two rough and tumble guys who can't even like hit. They're shooting this. What does he call it? An arm cannon. They can't get anywhere near the target. Someone has the balls to tell his wife to grow a set.
Yeah.
That scene was just funny. So that's one of my favorite scenes so far in the whole story. So.
Yeah, that was good. And then you bookended with the pregnancy announcement at the end.
No, that was the. You did say it could be construed as a trope. As if this keeps popping up, but at least it's like we get some character development, we get some story development with the two. So
it's the Bentley way. If you're gonna do it, stick with it, and he's sticking with it. So yeah, I love that. It reinforces Matt Drake's family first mentality. All right, good stuff. Well, I am happy to say I was flirting with something in the 20s. Have we done that yet? I don't know if we went that low yet.
No, I don't think so.
I was flirting with it, but thankfully you got me up a few halves along the way to come out to an even 30. And I think you as well also come out to an even 30.
Yeah, we
pretty much the same.
Plus or minus half a point in a couple areas we would do differed, but ultimately came up to the same. So again, not our favorite book. But I think we talked through maybe why, speculating why maybe some of this, it completely makes sense now you said the timing of this book coming out.
Right.
And then the context of the book coming out. It'd be different if this book came out in 2023.
Sure.
I would have a different opinion of it.
Sure. Or 2020, right? Like, or any time before the invasion where Ukraine wasn't front and center on everybody's mind. And you come up with a story like this without relying on real history and current events. Like, that's explosive as a plot. Explosive. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But we're a little desensitized to it because we've seen crazier shit in the news. That's real.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that we had a better version of this with the recent Brad Thor novel in Deadfall. So
and Deadfall didn't help. Exactly. Yeah. So I think knowing we were a little harsh on this pod, but I think knowing the context, some of that is understandable and kind of just like one of those bad timing from an audience perspective for you and I to get into this book.
It really intrigued to see if it's just us or if our listeners feel the same way.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. And which means when we finish the next book, we have to do kind of a ranking, and hopefully some of our patrons and followers will share their rankings. And I'd be curious if someone makes the argument that this is second or third place in the series.
Number
Go
one.
for it. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear why. It's not going to be for us.
No, and rest assured, guys, like unless the second half of Forgotten War takes a completely different turn, which, based on this book, it could.
We're loving it so far.
But we are loving it. I have like 5 hours left on the audiobook, and it's like a 14-hour audiobook. Yeah. It is good. So
far, what I've read in it is my favorite of Don Bentley so far.
I was going to say that too.
Definitely. And I've read almost the first half, and I think it's better than Without Sanction, which I loved.
Yeah.
Dude, Hostile Intent has a 4.5 on Amazon.
I know, I saw that.
And a 4.3 on Goodreads. The people like it. All right.
Well, it only has 1,400 ratings on Amazon.
Oh, is that not as much as some others?
Yeah, typically those things have.
Few thousand.
Outside Man has 2,000.
Okay.
With all right, so go look at what was Code Red? 13,000.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, so magnitude of difference. I'm curious though, not to spoil things, but Forgotten War, yup, on on Goodreads, people love Forgotten War. And very interesting, the cover is getting away from the Standing Man.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and people love it on Amazon, dude. So I think you and I are onto something. That next episode, when we get to talk Forgotten War, is going to be complete opposite vibes of this one.
Oh, for sure. And I think I could just maybe I'll save most of what I'm saying for the next pod, but I think the topic of Afghanistan,
yes,
and how close I think it is to Don's heart,
yes,
and like he's posted about it on Instagram. Obviously, he was there, right? He was he flew pilots or flew helicopters, right?
Yeah, flew Apaches.
So, which is interesting that there's an Apache helicopter pilot in the next book. It's kind of like his love letter to Afghanistan, almost.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that book has a special place for him. And I just find it a bit more interesting than the Ukraine stuff in terms of what I'm currently interested in, is how our service members were affected by Afghanistan. And there's more of like an American stake there, where Ukraine, to me right now, the only debate around it is how much should we give them money and how much. And it's like, it kind of pulls on your strings as an American a little differently, knowing what we went through in Afghanistan versus the political debate around sending weapons to Ukraine. It's a whole nother thing. So it just hits differently, I think, for us and for him.
All right. Well, we'll be back tomorrow to talk Forgotten War. Stay tuned.
Yes, sir.
Again, we need to thank our patrons, including our special operators, Sherry F. and Jason C. Our special agents, Ben, Daryl, Kevin, George, Matt, Dawn, Peggy, and Mark. Please subscribe, rate, and review using your favorite podcast platform. Find us online at thrillerpod.com or on Twitter and Insta at thrillerpodcast. And as always, just let sweet be sweet.